It was midnight when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen wasn't familiar, but something about the text pulled me in. Dispatch log from tonight. Check it out. I hesitated. Most police logs were mundane. A shoplifting here, a noise complaint there. But this one came from an old cop friend who'd gotten transferred to a small, quiet town out in the sticks. Quiet towns rarely stay that way for long. The link led to a surveillance camera's live feed, shaky and dim. The timestamp blinked 11:47 p.m. A police cruiser idled in the parking lot of a rundown diner. 2 officers leaned against the hood, sipping coffee. Then the footage shifted. From the far corner of the frame, a man staggered into view, swaying like a puppet on broken strings. His clothes were filthy, caked in mud, and his head twitched like he was trying to shake off invisible flies. One of the officers noticed him and nudged their partner. Both approached cautiously. Their body language screamed unease, hands hovering near their holsters. The audio was faint, distorted, but I caught fragments of their conversation. "Okay, buddy, you lost." The man stopped dead. He tilted his head toward them, his movements sharp and unnatural. The camera zoomed in, catching his face. A mask of pure terror, bloodshot eyes darting wildly. "Asterisk, it's here, asterisk," he rasped. One officer stepped closer. "What's here? Are you hurt?" Before the man could answer, he collapsed, limbs spasming. His fingers clawed at the asphalt as if trying to drag himself away from something unseen. Then, the shadows moved. The diner's overhead light flickered, casting a stuttering glow across the parking lot. It was subtle at first, a ripple along the far wall, where no shadow should have been. But as the camera zoomed out, the ripple grew, twisting into an inky mass that slithered closer to the fallen man. The officers froze, staring. One reached for their radio, barking for backup. Then the shadow stood up. It wasn't a shadow anymore. It had shape, tall, hunched, its limbs impossibly long. Its head, or what passed for a head, was featureless, save for 2 pinpricks of glowing red. It loomed over the man like a predator sizing up its prey. And then it lunged. The footage cut out. I stared at the blank screen, my heart pounding. A second later, my phone buzzed again. A text from the same number. "Meet me. Diner parking lot. Bring a flashlight." Against every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, I grabbed my car keys. The diner was exactly how the footage showed it. Isolated, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to lean in unnaturally close, as if the trees were eavesdropping. My headlights swept across the cracked asphalt, revealing the same parking lot, the same flickering overhead light. Felt surreal, like I'd driven straight into the video. A single car was parked in the lot. An old, battered sedan with a dented door. I pulled up next to it and cut the engine. My flashlight, heavy and cold in my hand, suddenly felt inadequate. "Hey!" A low voice hissed from the darkness. I jumped, nearly dropping the light. A figure emerged from behind the sedan. It was my friend, the cop who'd sent the footage. His face was pale, his uniform rumpled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked, glancing around nervously. "Yeah. What the hell was that?" I demanded. "Was it real?" He nodded, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I was on the scene. After the footage cut, things got worse." He gestured for me to follow him toward the diner's back lot. As we walked, he talked in a hushed tone. "After the shadow attacked, backup arrived. For units. But when they got here, there was nothing. No shadow. No body. Just 2 cops sitting in their cruiser, staring straight ahead. Unresponsive. They're alive?" I asked. "Technically, but it's like their minds are gone. We found them hours later, just sitting there, like statues." We rounded the corner, and that's when I saw it. A smear of black tar-like residue on the ground. It formed a strange, twisting pattern that made my stomach churn just looking at it. "This is where it happened," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is that?" I knelt down, shining the flashlight over the substance. It shimmered faintly, almost alive, and emitted a faint hum. "No one knows," he said. The lab techs took samples, but they won't say anything. One of them disappeared the next day. Just didn't show up for work. I stood up, my pulse quickening. Why did you bring me here? What do you think I can do? He looked me dead in the eye. Because it's not over. Whatever this thing is, it's spreading. And I think it's hunting. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I glanced at the woods, suddenly hyper-aware of every rustle, every whisper of wind. Why me? I asked. What am I supposed to do about this? He hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket. A small, weathered notebook. This belonged to one of the officers in the footage. Found it in his cruiser after the incident. It has details, warnings. I took the notebook and flipped through it. The handwriting was erratic, almost frantic. Scrawled phrases jumped out at me. Asterisk, don't trust the shadows. Asterisk, asterisk. It watches when the lights flicker. Asterisk, asterisk. If it touches you, run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Asterisk, I looked up at my friend. You're saying this thing is following me now? Before he could answer, the overhead light flickered. Once, twice, then it went out. The darkness swallowed us whole. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, trembling in my unsteady grip. My friend cursed under his breath, fumbling for his gun. The faint hum from the black residue on the ground grew louder, like a swarm of insects closing in. Stay close, he whispered, though his voice cracked with fear. If the light goes out, don't stop moving. The trees around us seemed to shift, their shadows elongating unnaturally. My flashlight flickered, a brief, sputtering betrayal that sent my pulse into overdrive. That's when I heard it. The sound from the video. A low, guttural rasp, like air being sucked through clenched teeth. It came from everywhere and nowhere all at once. My flashlight caught movement ahead, something tall and angular, just out of reach of the beam. The red pinpricks of its eyes locked onto us. I stepped closer. I froze. My friend grabbed my arm and yanked me backward. Move, he shouted, his voice breaking through my paralysis. We ran. My flashlight bounced wildly, casting frantic arcs of light. The rasping grew louder, and with it, the sense of something massive bearing down on us. Behind us, the diner's lights flickered back on, illuminating the parking lot. But it wasn't a relief. The black tar-like residue spread across the ground in unnatural tendrils, pulsating as if alive. The shape from the shadows emerged fully into the light, revealing a grotesque form. Impossibly tall, its body covered in shifting, inky blackness. Its limbs twisted as it moved, joints bending in ways that defied logic. It wasn't chasing us. It was hurting us. The realization hit me too late. We burst into the woods, the trees closing in, their branches clawing at our clothes. My friend stumbled and fell, dragging me down with him. My flashlight clattered to the ground, its beam pointed upward, catching the creature's distorted silhouette through the canopy. It didn't follow us into the woods. Instead, it stopped at the edge of the tree line, watching, waiting. Why isn't it coming after us? I whispered, my voice barely audible. My friend shook his head, panting. I don't know, but I think this is worse. The ground beneath us began to tremble. A low, rhythmic thudding echoed through the forest, coming from all directions. My flashlight, still lying on the ground, flickered wildly. Something's coming, I said, dread pooling in my stomach. My friend grabbed the flashlight, his hands shaking. We can't stay here. He pulled me to my feet, and we stumbled deeper into the forest, the thudding growing louder with every step. The air grew colder, each breath visible in the dim light. The hum from the residue seemed to follow us, even though it should have been left behind in the parking lot. We burst into a small clearing and stopped dead. In the center stood a tree gnarled, ancient, and covered in the same black, pulsing substance. It stretched skyward, its branches twisting unnaturally. At its base lay something even more horrifying, bodies. Dozens of them, twisted, disfigured, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror. The hum grew deafening. The tree's branches writhed, reaching toward us. "This is it," my friend whispered, his voice hollow. "This is where it takes them." The red eyes appeared again, this time from within the tree itself. The rasping sound grew closer, surrounding us. The flashlight dimmed, its batteries drained to the brink. I felt the pull, an overwhelming urge to step closer to the tree, to let it take me. The air around it shimmered, and I saw them, the people from the footage. They stood in the shadows, motionless, their eyes glowing faintly red. "We have to destroy it," my friend said suddenly, his voice breaking through the trance. "It's the source." "With what?" I shouted, panic rising. He yanked a flare gun from his belt, something I hadn't seen before. "This." I grabbed it from my cruiser. The rasping grew louder. The tree's branches snapped toward us, faster now, almost sentient. "Do it," I yelled. He aimed the flare gun and fired. The flare struck the base of the tree, igniting the black substance. The hum turned into an ear-piercing screech, and the ground beneath us buckled. Flames consumed the tree, racing up its trunk and devouring the writhing branches. The figures in the shadows dissolved, their red eyes flickering out one by one. The screeching stopped. The forest went still. We stumbled away as the tree collapsed in on itself, the black residue evaporating into the air. The red eyes were gone, the oppressive hum silenced. For the first time all night there was peace. Back at the diner, the parking lot was empty. The cruiser was gone. My friend and I sat in silence, staring at the horizon as the first rays of dawn broke through. "What now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He shook his head. "We hope that was the only one." Neither of us spoke again. But deep down I knew we hadn't stopped it. Not completely. Because as I drove home, my car radio flickered to life, static crackling through the speakers. And beneath the static I heard it. The rasping,